welcome, guys, to episode number 33 of Star Wars Happy Hour. I am one of your hosts, David, along with Emily.
Hey.
And it is just the two of us right now. Rachel is sort of backstage, observing and commenting, and maybe she'll be able to hop on later. Um, but welcome. It's going to be a shorter show compared to what we usually do. Uh, so we'll be heading out of here probably about 5 minutes before 8. Um, but we do have some cool stuff to talk about, and it's stuff that Emily hasn't seen yet
Yep.
because
I'm
it
new.
was it was released today, and it was super cool, and it has to do with the Galactic Star Cruiser. So, for those of you guys that don't know or haven't gotten a chance to look at it, today was the first day or technically the second day of Destination D23 that's here in Orlando. And they had a ton of park related stuff that they announced today. Stuff that was coming back, stuff that they're building, and um, you know, opening dates for future attractions. And a huge part of it, in terms of stuff that we could finally see, had to deal with the Galactic Star Cruiser because up until now we've seen concept art, we've seen artist renderings of what it looks like inside, but we haven't really gotten a real look inside in terms of what the guests are going to be seeing until today. And the two things that they showed were the lightsaber training, what that looks like, and the bridge of the ship and what that
Oh.
looks like and what you would do. So there, and the great thing about it is that they have two videos that you could watch, um, and it's about a minute and a half, and it's really interesting. Uh, so Emily, what are your thoughts about lightsaber training and getting to sort of be on the bridge of a Star Wars ship and sort of act out everything as if it's happening to you? Like, are you you know, give me all the audience participation stuff, or do you like to observe more?
I
Yeah.
like to observe more. I'm very
Okay.
introverted. Don't have children.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been to a con before. I've
Mm-hmm.
never cosplayed before. I'm a very
Yeah.
enjoy it from afar kind of person.
Right. Right.
But it might be cool to if there was ever a time to go
Mm-hmm.
and really give yourself up to enjoying a full immersive experience.
Mm-hmm.
This might not be a bad way to do it,
Yeah.
especially if you have kids. I feel like that would be really cool.
Right. Now, the cool thing about, and I'll be honest with you, I know if you guys have listened to the show at any point since they've announced more detail about what the Galactic Star Cruiser is and how it operates, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it. Um, for the two reasons. One, I live here, and I can't really justify spending thousands of dollars to drive a half hour and do something that half of or one day of the experience at least I can already go do. Um, and the second part of it is the itinerary seems to be so regimented. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, gotta do this from 10 to 11. Breakfast is 7 to 8. We do it. It's like I almost would rather, and you can tell me your thoughts on this because it's almost the same price. Uh, I would rather a Disney Cruise Line ship be made in the vein of an actual, Star Cruiser. Um, to me, that would be so much more uh, enjoyable, not only for the sole fact that you would actually be going somewhere on a cruise
Mhm.
ship instead of just staying stationary and make believe you're doing this or that. Um, but the value of the trip to me would be so much better because imagine if you had a cruise on a Star Wars cruise ship, entirely themed, the cast members all in character, and you could just like roam around the ship, go to a bar, get nightly entertainment, whatnot, in that vein of Star Wars. Uh, and so, let's say you leave on a Friday, but the Thursday or Wednesday beforehand, in your itinerary, it's included before you set sail, you have a day at Galaxy's Edge. And then that's like included in your plane ticket, included in your cruise line reservation and everything. And then you go. And if it was me, my cruise would go to Skellig Michael Island from The Force Awakens and the sequel trilogy, just
Mhm.
to see that in part of Ireland. But what are your thoughts? Would you like something more like an actual vacation that's just made to feel like you're on an actual ship, or do you like the route that they've gone with building an exclusive hotel like that?
Well, I get the allure of what you're describing,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like Disney probably will do that in the future.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm very like morally against cruises
Yeah.
because they're really bad for the environment and they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of like crime hotspots. A lot of weird things can happen on cruise ships because you're
Yeah.
kind of like outside of the jurisdiction of your home country. So
That's
like
fair.
a lot of people go missing, but also they hit whales. It's just I just like
Right.
am very against cruises, but I think what you're describing makes a lot more sense
Mm-hmm.
than a hotel. And I think like they're building up to it. If they did the cruise first, no one would come to the hotel.
I should have guessed wrong. That was does not sound like fun.
Yeah, Rachel, those cruises, lots of stuff happen.
Yeah. And listen, I may talk a lot of crap, but if you would like to be so kind to donate to us on Patreon,
Yeah.
there you go. And we will tell you firsthand because I
Yeah,
know they've already allowed press on the thing to do some write
oh,
ups.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
It would be cool for like all the members of the podcast to be able to go together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That
so
would be super
donate to
cool.
our Patreon.
Yeah, get us over there, even though
Get
it's
us
like
all
booked.
there because
It's
right now
booked
we're
until
all
like 2047, but
none of us have met in person.
Right, exactly. Which is crazy.
It is crazy because we've been doing this like going on a year. Crazy.
Oh my
Wow.
god, it has almost been a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is going on?
I know, right? I was thinking
Where
about
has
that.
this year gone? Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Almost a year. I'll
Yeah.
have to keep an eye on that. We gotta do like a special 1 year
Yeah, that'd be cool.
stream. Um,
But yeah, I get the experience you're describing where
mhm.
it's still immersive, but it's less strict. It's more like you can do what you want to do.
Right, which is more so what I'm aiming towards. Like, if I just want to hang out the entire day at the themed bar,
Mm-hmm.
or and that should give you an insight on what my weekends look like. Or go to the shops and take a look at just. I don't want to feel like I have to do something every hour
Mm-hmm.
to get the experience. Because what if I
Yeah.
just want to stay in my room?
Yeah.
Honestly, what if I just want
Really.
to take a nap? You know, and it feels like I'm sure nobody's gonna force you if you don't want to do something. But at the same time, I feel like because you won't do something, you'll lose out on the experience.
Yeah.
It's either like if you're not all in, you're kind of wasting your money.
Yeah. And like I assume they're only gonna have like that section in that scheduled time.
Right.
Like you won't be able to do the lightsaber building at a different time.
Yeah.
But because of that, like everyone's gonna be doing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah. And I know I forget how many people are allowed in at a time, but even still, it just seems, I don't know. And you also have to hope that everyone that's going would be as invested in the experience as you might be.
Hmm.
Because some people could just go because, oh, it's the new thing and, I have the money, so I'm going to do it. Whereas you maybe have been saving up for this since it was announced, and you are thinking about this experience from a certain perspective of everybody here's a diehard Star Wars fan, everybody's going to be as into it as I am, and then if it doesn't meet that expectation that you have, you might be like, it wasn't as fun as I thought it might be, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Because Disney World is kind of like that to
Yeah,
start, but at least it's not like you're all on the same
right,
schedule.
right. When you want to do stuff for the most part.
Yeah, because like when I was a
Yeah,
kid and we went to Disney World, my parents literally saved up for at least a full year, probably longer than that, before we were able.
yeah,
Like they told us we were going a year before we actually were able to go.
right. And you have to do that. Like, you have to
Hmm.
prepare that far in advance,
Hmm.
because there's just so many moving parts, reservations, and now with the COVID restrictions and whatnot. Which
Yeah, and
honestly,
that's the other thing with the COVID restrictions. I don't
yeah,
really want to be in a hotel with a bunch of other people on the same schedule with the little kids. Not
yeah, it's
on my
I don't
to-do
know.
list.
Like, I was at Hollywood Studios a couple weeks ago, and they say they have a cap on how many people are going into the parks. But the way I look at it, they're at full capacity,
Mm.
because you should have seen the people lining up to get in to Hollywood Studios. There were maybe 3 inches separating everybody. Like, and thinking about that, you're just like, why? Like, why?
Mhm.
You know? I don't get it. But anyway, I will say the inside of the hotel, the two things that I saw, which is the lightsaber training and the bridge, looked incredible. It looked so good. Um, I was a little underwhelmed with how they're doing the lightsaber training,
Mm.
just because it seems to be a lot more straightforward than I thought it would be.
Mm.
It's obviously you have the lightsaber, but there's a remote in the wall, and it's just like a laser sort of shooting out, and
I
it
see.
progressively gets faster as
Mm.
you block the laser, which that part would be kind of cool. Um, but yeah, the room doesn't seem that big, but when you go to the bridge, that thing is huge, and you're basically defending the ship from an attack. So, like, incoming TIE fighters, your one person is aiming, another person's firing at the TIE fighter. So it's like a huge arcade game,
Mm-mm.
basically. But it looks really good. Uh, and did you hear about the really unfortunate news that the lightsaber that they built will never be for sale and you can't touch it or
Yeah,
anything?
I saw Meg's headline.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
It's very sad. Why? I didn't read the actual article. Is there a
Mm-hmm.
reason? Was it too hard to make it like a mass market thing?
So I think
Mass produced.
my reasoning for it is that I think the way that it's built is so um yeah, exactly. Rachel, that's exactly what it sounds like. Um I think the way that the lightsaber's built is that it's so fragile, like the
Mm.
blade, that even if you mass produced it, they would break almost instantly. Because from what I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard it as well, the way it's built is it's like a tape measure with
Hmm.
LEDs, which is what makes it retract and detract.
Yeah.
So I get that, but at the same time, if you sold that, people would buy it.
Oh yeah.
Just as a prop,
Mhm.
just as, I don't know. People would
And you
I don't know
froze.
why you really wouldn't. Oh, dang it.
You're
I was
back.
going to say,
Okay.
I don't know why
I
you
was
wouldn't
like, I'm gonna
capitalize.
run this show by myself.
I don't
Cosplay.
know. Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't capitalize on that because you could sell that for
Yeah. I mean,
a
I
lot
guess
of money.
I don't know. I assume that there were patents involved.
Yeah,
So you wouldn't be afraid of other people necessarily copying it.
right.
I they're probably going to do something with it. They've already used it as like a marketing
Mm-hmm.
publicity thing, but they might do more with that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. It just seems like they're wasting a huge opportunity because when they released the Luke and Leia lightsabers, or
Mm-hmm.
the Leia lightsaber specifically, and then they had the 2-pack that came out after the Rise of Skywalker. If you release that lightsaber on that scale, and you sell it for maybe like, I don't know, $600-$700,
People would buy it.
people would buy it. Like,
Yep.
and people have bought crazier things for a lot more, and I really don't understand it. Uh, but I mean, that was so far today. That's been the highlight in terms of Star Wars stuff. Um, and for Disney park fans in general, there are, I forget which park is getting it, but they're building a Zootopia land. I think in
Ooh.
I think in hold on. Now I have to look it up because I don't want to say the wrong park. Um, but they're building a Zootopia land and they're building a Frozen land.
Of course.
Yeah, because why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you?
Uh, okay, so
I love
destination.
both of those movies, so I would go to
Oh,
both.
I mean, I like Frozen 1 more than 2 because I fell asleep during 2.
Yeah, I agree. The first one's better than the second.
Uh, okay, destination D23. Um,
I don't know what Frozen Land would look like, though. I
yeah,
mean,
I really don't know.
I guess you could have Elsa's castle in there.
Yeah, you could have Elsa's castle. You could probably have um, the backdrop could also be like just mountains, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Why can't I looked at this earlier. Why can't I find it now? Oh, if I go to my history, that could probably work.
Rachel's very happy. Frozen
Here we
ever after when the doors open to Elsa's castle. It's
Okay,
totally normal. Totally normal.
of course. Um,
We're on the T Plus panel day. I have no idea. I do not keep up with the news.
yes, tomorrow is the Disney Plus panel. Oh, jeez, I was like, what is that sound? Uh, it's tomorrow 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern. But from what I heard, they said don't expect any Star Wars announcements. But again, okay, we're about to go back on a friggin'
Let it
thing
all
with
out.
marketing because if oh, we'll talk about some news today then. So apparently Sabine's been cast.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah. And Disney Plus Day was literally a week ago.
Yes.
If
Why didn't
this
they announce it then?
if this is true, because again, it's reported by Deadline, Variety. It's not reported by StarWars.com.
Yeah.
However, if it is true, why didn't you announce this last week on Disney Plus Day to promote a Disney Plus series that's
Mm-hmm.
coming out following a character that's been around since 2008
Yep.
and has seen a resurgence in live action that has now garnered a slew of new fans who are going back to your animated series
Yep.
to watch that character.
I
And then,
yeah. Uh, it
and
beats
then
me.
introducing Sabine along the way. Like, I don't understand the reasoning. They didn't even announce Soka's casting before Mandalorian. I know, and that was leaked.
Yeah.
Even Faber said it in the behind the scenes thing. He was like, "Oh, like it got out that Tamora was coming back, that Rosario Dawson was cast," and he was like, "Thank God that they didn't leak the thing about Luke."
Yeah.
So, well, first of all, let me get your reaction on the casting. What do you think?
I don't. I've seen. Okay. I've seen a lot of opinions online.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm trying to listen to those opinions with an open mind. I am not an Asian person or a
Mm-hmm.
brown person. I am very white and very European. So it's not really my place to say whether it's a good casting or not.
Mm-hmm.
I did look at the actress because I had never heard of her. She's Australian. Her mother is Chinese. It seems like she has some martial arts background. So I assume that they cast her kind of because she has a lot of martial arts and can do a lot of fight scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I don't really know. I don't know what to think.
Okay, and that's fair because you're right. There are a lot of differing opinions online, as there's about everything. Um, what I will say is that I have seen Natasha Liu Bordizzo, who is the actress' name. She's in a movie called Guns Akimbo with Daniel Radcliffe, and she's really good in that movie. That's the only thing I've seen her in. But if you just look at her face and Sabine's face, it's kind of really weird how similar they
Yeah.
look. I was like, hold up, this seems way too close to be real.
They do have similar facial structures. That is true.
Yeah.
And part of it is it goes back to Rebels. A problem with Rebels, because people think that like, yeah, she's of Asian descent, but she is
Mm-hmm.
very white looking.
Mm-hmm.
Her skin tone is very lighter.
Right.
But that goes back to Sabine. Like Sabine was very dark. She was depicted as having a darker skin tone in the first season and then like progressively got lighter skin tone. And
Yeah.
so like the problem is rooted back there, and it's really hard to
Mm-hmm.
say like what the actual I can't say that word. Ethnic background
Right.
of Sabine should be. And I know a lot of people were upset that the voice actress wasn't cast
Mm-hmm.
as Sabine, and I don't know why that decision wasn't made because she
Right.
seems like a perfectly fine actress too, and I would have been fine with them casting
Mm-hmm.
her. But yeah, I just assume it's because of the martial arts. I don't know more than that.
Okay.
I am excited to see Sabine in live action though.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me too.
I think that'll be fun. And with Disney, part of their marketing, it might just be like they know that the fans who took the time to watch Rebels and to like Rebels are going to watch, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to market because if they do announce Sabine's casting on like Disney Plus Day, it's not going to really pull in people who aren't already fans of Rebels.
Right.
It's only going to pull from that. And those people are probably already going to watch it.
That's fair. That's fair. I guess my issue still with it, a week removed, is you have all of these. Your primary focus right now is Disney Plus. You've announced movies But where have those movies gone? Either outright canceled
Mm-hmm.
or scheduling conflicts, which I'm sorry, I don't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. It just seems so weird because I understand Star Wars Celebration is in April or May, but that's April or May. One of these shows could very well premiere in April or May,
Yeah.
meaning Kenobi or Andor. But I know somebody said Andor's in like late next year. But even still, I don't know. I don't understand for a Disney Plus oriented event to get new subscribers at that, and then you put the first looks at things on Disney Plus, where if somebody who's not subscribed to Disney Plus, they can't even see it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just I don't understand the logic. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And I know we talked about this last week, but it just still doesn't make any sense to me.
Me either. I have no idea
Yeah,
why Disney does. I mean, like, but I guess they're doing something right because
we're
they
talking
are
about it,
successful.
and yeah, they are. I'm not discounting that at all. It just seems like they could do so much better.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Like you don't have a poster. You don't have you don't have a cast or Rosario Dawson just talking in front of a camera for like 30 seconds, talking
Yeah.
about how excited she is to shoot the thing, or potential shooting date, or something to let us know that it's still moving.
Yeah.
Because what we experience right now as fans is this thing that I'm really excited for, is it even going to happen? That's where we are right now, unfortunately. You know, are,
Do you
are
think
you? No, yeah, go ahead.
do you think Disney just puts more stock in like the Marvel side of things and marketing towards Marvel? I don't know. Because I feel like Marvel is more the everyman's franchise, whereas Star Wars seems like a more exclusive club. That might not be
I
true.
I think what it is right now is that Marvel has, and I don't even think it was ever necessarily behind in any big way, but I think Marvel on screen has surpassed Star Wars. Um, there hasn't been this sort of, uh, you know, I love The Last Jedi, but to me, I haven't seen a Marvel movie that's been made that has caused such a rift in the fandom. It's
Yep.
either like if a movie isn't on par with what a Marvel movie can be, the fandom at large has generally been like, yeah, that movie's not that great. Eternals is more split with the critics. The fans, I think it's either at an 80 or 90% on Fandango, which
Interesting.
is kind of weird because I thought
I
it would have
haven't
been the
seen it
other
yet.
way around. It's a very good movie, but I think where the split there is, it's if you don't get the references to the larger MCU, you wouldn't know it's an MCU movie.
Mm.
Like it is so far removed that it looks like a very sci-fi superhero movie. Um, and I think that's its strength to me. I that's what I really liked about it. Um, but yeah, like I haven't seen Marvel cause that kind of thing, and for a movie like Infinity War and Endgame as a sort of a cap to 11 years of a story, they handled it better, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it felt like a cultural event. Like it
Yeah,
felt like the whole country was in the movie theater.
right. Whereas Star Wars, I understand you were finishing off 9 movies in total over a span of 40 years. But yeah, Rachel, you'll get there. When we do this
You'll
rewatch
get
next
there.
year, you'll get the
We'll
full
celebrate.
effect of
We'll
how it
bring
felt.
kazoos.
Yeah, just wait for that portals moment. You'll understand. Um, but Rise of Skywalker could have.
You
I think
froze,
I
but
froze.
I think you were gonna say it could have been that.
Did I froze?
Yeah, a little bit. You're back.
Yeah, I I said Rise of Skywalker could have been that kind of like, because regardless of how people felt about the Last Jedi, I think if Rise of Skywalker delivered the way that a lot of us thought it was going to, and I understand the movie worked for a lot of people, and I like a lot of parts in it, but as the cap to all 9, I don't I don't know that it did for me. Um, so yeah, I think Marvel has yeah, Rachel, yeah, it does sadden me.
Well, I part of it might just be like the Marvel movies just seem like really good movies,
Yeah,
but they have a lot of material to
right,
work with and
absolutely.
manipulate. Whereas Star Wars at this point, it's all new.
Yeah,
Like they have to come up with these things from
yeah,
kind of scratch, like
yeah.
pretty much
Here's a
at
question
this
for you.
point.
Do you think if, because Marvel and DC, they obviously rely um, heavily in terms of ideas and what they can do with a story, they rely on the comics.
Hmm.
That's where these characters originated. That's where the fan base largely has come from, is reading the comics. Do you think if Star Wars paid more attention to the publishing side of things and took ideas from that, put them into their movies as a sort of reward to the fans, saying, hey, we understand that these things are happening in the same world. So, like, if for the Acolyte, if we get mentions of stuff from the High Republic,
Hmm.
characters, events,
Hmm.
um, like you start cultivating that part of the canon that you can pick from and include
Yeah.
in your movies, because that's largely what Marvel and DC do. They're like, oh, really like that arc from Spider-Man, but let's do a couple different things with it. But
Hmm.
let the fans know, hey, we're paying attention to what's come before and what influences the story.
Yeah.
Do you think
Even
that
if
would be
they
a good
did that
idea?
with like Legends stuff, which
Yeah.
I've not read any of it, but I know a lot of people did and a lot of people loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's not canon anymore, if they did like take that material, work
Yes.
with it, and maybe they have to some extent, but I think it would be rewarding for those fans. And it, even if you do something that is totally different from what the movies have shown, I think it
Mm-hmm.
would just be less divisive because there's a precedent.
Right. Right. Like including Snap Wexley in the sequel trilogy. Good move.
Mm-hmm.
The Aftermath books were the first books that came out, I think, in the new canon. And that character, he's basically the main character in that trilogy. But I'm like, if he's going to be a main character in that trilogy and they're going to bring him into a movie, I don't know, give him like a tiny bit more to do in terms of, uh, being part of Poe's squad, or because he wasn't even in The Last Jedi, which I understand largely everybody in that movie was scattered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know, it was, I feel like they have everything in front of them, and this is where Disney Plus has been doing really well, like with The Mandalorian and with The Bad Batch, bring in Bo-Katan
Mm-hmm.
from Clone Wars.
Yeah. They're really good at incorporating like TV shows
Yeah,
stuff, especially in their
Yeah.
other TV shows.
Yeah.
They're starting to do it with the film, but up until now, everything has felt very isolated. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
like the Star Wars films are here, the Star
Yeah.
Wars TV shows are here, the games, the
Yeah.
books, and
Yeah.
there's not a lot of interconnectedness. And
Yeah.
maybe they're just afraid of breaking like continuity. I don't know, but I don't know.
Yeah. And it's super tricky. I'm not gonna pretend like it's an easy thing to be like, oh, this person could fit in this movie. It's gonna be fine.
Hmm.
But at the same time, that's why I think you need um, this, because I assume the Lucasfilm Story Group is still a thing. I think they would be the ones to really be the definitive voice in saying this character could do really well here because um, that part of their story or their influence on in this part of this history of the galaxy, we haven't even touched it yet, and that's why I think a character that could easily play into um, any of these shows taking place post episode 3 uh, would be Dr. Aphra from the
Mm,
comics.
yeah,
She would be
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. That'd be really cool.
Because I feel like we're going kind of backwards, where instead of stuff from the comics going into. Oh my god, that's funny. Um, Instead of the comics influencing the movies and being a part of the movies, I feel like it's the reverse. Oh no, I fully expect you to comment, Rachel. Of course. I feel like the movies are going into the comics.
Yeah,
Perfect example is Crimson Reign. Like, it feels like we're doing the reverse thing. I don't know if that's to get people that aren't high on the movies but are into the comics to revisit the movies and go watch the stuff on the screen, or just flesh out characters that have become popular but don't want to commit to including them in uh, theatrical releases or a Disney Plus show. Because do you think if the Lando show happens, might get Star Wars fans into comics? It could be, but I still think that if somebody, I think if somebody really, uh, if somebody reads the comics largely, they're already reading the comics for the most part. Because I was watching somebody, I forget who it was, but they were saying how they don't hear any buzz about the High Republic. Like they feel like nobody's interested in it. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I see everybody on Twitter's like losing their minds over it half the time. Um,
yeah.
but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
It seems like the people who don't like The Last Jedi also don't like the High Republic, and I don't know why that is, because they're very different
Mm-hmm.
things. But that's been my experience with it. I don't follow a lot of Star Wars accounts on Twitter,
Yeah.
so the ones I see are really like our circle,
Yeah.
where the High Republic is really accepted and enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't really know. I don't have a sense for how it's um, seen by the public at large.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It
That's
seemed
fair.
like it was a big deal when it first came out
It
in
was.
2020.
It was.
Was that 2020? Was that this year? What year was
Wait, no,
that?
it came out 2020,
2021.
2021 this year, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, I know. I feel like I don't know what year it is.
um, yeah, it seemed like a big thing when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, like, to me, I kind of got lost because I've read the very first book, The Light of the Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's all I've read from it. And I was going to read more, but then like they went through the phases so quickly, I
Yeah.
felt like I was already behind, and then I got overwhelmed, and then
Mm-hmm.
I just stopped reading.
Yeah.
So maybe they need to space that.
Space it out. Well, I think what happened was they had to delay the release because of COVID.
That's right.
Because I
Yeah.
think they were supposed to come out um, summer of 2020 or fall of 2020, something like that. And then
But
they had to
but
push
then
it.
why wouldn't you just delay the whole thing?
I don't know. They just like
Yeah.
dropped it. Uh, yeah, that's why I lighted the. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's a little bit much for me.
yeah.
I was like,
What's going on, Charles? Welcome.
hi, Charles.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I just feel like if there was more uh, interconnectivity with the media, it would be so much more rewarding um, for fans, and not even fans who have to watch everything. But let's say a friend of yours is like, "Oh, I went back to watch um, some episodes of Clone Wars or Rebels that you recommended," and then the ones that they watched just happen to have Bo-Katan in it, and then they watch Mandalorian, and they're like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
she's in this. That's super
Yeah.
cool." Like stuff like that. Whereas Marvel, and I understand Marvel's largely been, uh, you know, theatrically released and then just started doing Disney Plus with Star Wars, but all of their movies seem to be going and following. They let you know that all the characters are playing in the same sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
Ant-Man can show up in the Avengers compound in Ant-Man and have a thing with the Falcon, and then he's back to his own story.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Peter Parker can go into Civil War and do a little thing, and
Because I feel like Marvel movies focus on characters, whereas
mhm.
Star Wars movies focus on like
They focus on like events almost.
event
Like
time periods.
yeah, yeah. It's like I don't know if we've ever gotten a like strictly. I guess the closest one would kind of be, at least to me, uh, would be The Last Jedi, because there's a lot of character stuff in that movie.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. You. I guess Solo
Solo as well,
tried to
in a
do
way.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Rogue One, again, it's the backdrop of they're on the
Yeah,
Death Star
I still
plans
don't
and
feel
whatnot.
like Rogue One was Jen's story though. It was
Yeah,
Rogue One's story.
yeah, right, right.
Um, yeah. So
I just hope that the way things are trending with Fennec being in the Bad Batch, after being in
yeah,
the Mandalorian, I want that crossover, because Marvel almost did it, but now they have an out for it with the multiverse. Was the Marvel Netflix shows?
yeah,
Why isn't you get like very vague references to what happened in Avengers, like the incident,
hmm
but they like can't talk about it. It's like so weird. It's like, dude, Daredevil, you live in Hell's Kitchen. You're in New York. Like, I'm sure you saw a thing in the sky. I mean, I know you're technically blind, but I'm sure the way you see, you could have seen something.
could have sensed it.
You could have sensed it.
You
Like,
or heard it on the news.
yeah, you could have. Somebody could have told you. That's all I'm saying. Um,
Oh,
but
I thought of something. We were going back talking about how the marketing for this um,
the Disney Plus thing.
of Sabine
Oh,
was
so,
weird.
yeah.
And then I said, well, it probably wouldn't have brought any new fans in anyway. But then I remembered whenever they did announce that Ahsoka would be in the season 2 of The Mandalorian,
Mm-hmm.
my in-laws, who had never seen Clone Wars or Rebels,
Mm-hmm.
watched all of Clone Wars and Rebels to
No way.
prepare for the
They watched the
Mandalorian
entire
season 2.
series.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I know. If I'm remembering the sequence of events right, I love my in-laws. They're great. And then
Yeah.
they rewatched Clone Wars because
That
they
is
liked it. So I'm
awesome.
like, I married well. I married into the right family.
You're more dedicated than I am. That's funny. Uh, yeah, no, and that's a great point. The interconnectivity of stars is to include ancillary material. Yeah, it does. Because otherwise, why are you doing it?
Hmm.
If you're gonna say that all the canon counts, make it count. You know, like
Yeah.
another perfect example. Um, Laura Dern as Emilyn Holdo in The Last Jedi. The character there, I understand, in the book, uh, Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray. I understand the age. She was like a teenager in that book, but she was almost kind of like a Luna Lovegood character.
Oh, really?
Very, very quirky, very like um, sort of odd personality, but she was like one of Leia's best friends. And I'm like, okay, if you already have this story and this idea, why was that ever communicated to her? Like, to get some reference of like, oh, this is who my character was at this point of her life. You could have her play her the way she played her, but give us at least like a throwaway line of like, oh, she hasn't been the same since this happened,
Hmm.
or just something like that to let me know, okay, the character has progressed and isn't the same character we met in that book. Um, so that's a perfect example of them not taking advantage of the canon material that's already there to
Hmm.
further inform a character or a story.
Yeah, I
Same
didn't
with
even know that.
same with Hux. I think somebody asked Donald Gleason, like, hey, did you know that Hux did this and this in this novel? And he's like, no, I wish somebody would have told me. That's like super cool. And I'm like, it's all there.
Yeah.
Like it's literally all there. And I don't know why they're not using it, because it doesn't even have to. The actors themselves don't even need to read the book. Just
Yeah.
say like, hey, this person wrote this story um, revolving around your character. Your character was featured in it. Here's what happened,
Hmm.
and then you're like, oh, that's a nice little nugget to know.
Yeah.
And because some of the subtle character moments are critical for understanding key moments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like Charles. Yeah. Like I think of a good example of because you have to write it in a way where fans don't have to ingest everything, but the
Mm-hmm.
fans that do get something more out of it. Like when Ahsoka was in The Mandalorian and she had the line, um, I forget the whole line, but then she said like the best of us, like
Yeah.
will fall to the dark. And you know that she's talking about Anakin
Right.
because you
Right.
know that she was Anakin's Padawan, and they don't have to say that, and it
Yeah.
doesn't have to like mean anything to someone who that's their first,
Mm-hmm.
interaction with Ahsoka's character. But for those who do know, it means
Mm-hmm.
so much more.
Yeah.
They did, that well in Rebels too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could do so much more.
They could do so much more, and then those moments, if those people watching it know somebody or are just curious about, oh, who's she talking about? And
Yeah,
then if you have like a friend like, she was Anakin's apprentice. Let me show you
yeah,
this episode, this episode, this episode. Let me show you what happened the last time they met. And then you're like, oh my god,
yeah.
you know?
Well, and it's like when they showed the dark saber at the end of season 1, I
Mm-hmm.
freaked out
Me
and I'm
too.
like, what happened to Sabine?
Yeah, like how
Like,
did
what happened to
wh-
Bo Katan? I was
right?
like texting my sister, I'm like, Bo Katan. And
Like, oh
she's
my
like,
god, are they
who are
dead?
you talking about?
Yeah, it's so weird. I wonder if actors are told to not seek out the other stuff, like if authors aren't allowed
They're in a
to read
library.
fanfic. See, I don't. That would make total sense if the stuff wasn't labeled canon.
Yeah.
But like if it's coming straight from Lucasfilm, I'd be like, hey, if you want to, this is what I again, if I miraculously got a freaking job in Lucasfilm in charge of this stuff, I'd just say this: look, we have all these novels. Um, that are expanding the story. Some of them may include your character. Um, in case they do, either feel free to read the book in its entirety and get the whole story, or come to us and we'll schedule like a little meeting with the author who can like tell you about what they did with your character.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would help them so much. Um,
Yeah.
and Charles says, let me throw this one up on. Ah, there it is. Thank you, Rachel. My wife was asking how Anakin could react so quickly to situations. Then in Throne Alliances, we read about Second Sight. Yeah. Again, it's you're creating reasons and uh, motivations and just things that further enhance the story. Another classic thing with the sequel trilogy. Why is how can Rey be so powerful? Why can she do this? And they bury it in Before the Awakening, saying Rey's been on that desert for years, and she's a feared fighter. Like she's a feared fighter in Jakku. Nobody messes with her. How can she fly the Falcon? She built a simulator based on the YT freighter. That's why she can fly it. Like, but again, you don't know that unless you read a book. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's that kind of stuff. It creates for um, unnecessary like things like that.
And I feel
Uh,
like for some reason, like with Star Wars, they all, how to say this? It's like what is canon, what's not canon is such a
mm-hmm.
big deal. Like it's
Yeah,
it's like, and it seems like they constantly want to change what is canon, and they're like afraid of putting something in a book that
yeah,
is going to go against something that's going to be in a movie later on. Whereas
right.
like Marvel, I feel like they don't really care about that as much.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's just enjoy what is given to you.
Right,
And
and
like you want continuity, but if like, Daredevil doesn't know about what happened in New York, it's not that big of a deal. Like they're
yeah,
not going to stress about
right.
it.
Or
But Star Wars like is so hung
what?
up about.
Yeah, and like what Rachel just said, easy thing to get out of that whole thing with the Marvel Netflix shows. It's another Earth. It's another universe.
Yeah.
That's not the same Daredevil that's in the 616 timeline, which is the timeline that we've been following. They're in
Yeah.
another they're in another universe. Which
And
then you're like, oh, okay.
I'm not saying like I want things to be done intentionally. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that I just want a free for all. But to be done intentionally, but to also like allow the story to be told in the best way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Can't think
it's
of on. I can stop.
oh, Richard, you're gonna get into some timeline stuff with the Marvel movies. Just you wait. Um, but yeah, the last thing, and going back to the whole publishing thing, what I've heard and what Pablo Hidalgo said, and this was, I mean, 20. Geez, I already forgot when he said this. Uh, that if the book contradicts the movie, go with what's in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the way that I rationalize the Star Wars novels and the comics and all that, I treat it as a history book written by somebody who was around. So I'm like,
Exactly.
oh, okay. If that's how I'm taking it, some details might be different because that's how that person remembered the story,
Yeah.
or that's how they interpreted this.
That is how I had to watch Solo. Like
Yeah,
halfway through the movie, I'm like, this is ridiculous. And then I just like hit a switch in my head and I'm like, I'm going to treat this as like someone's fan fiction of
mm-hmm.
this character's backstory. And then I had a ball.
Yeah,
I'm like, this is great.
yeah, yeah. And like I really like the movie and everything, but there are a few choices. I'm like, really, dude, that's how Han Solo got his name. He couldn't have just been Han Solo
Yeah.
from the
But
start.
and again, like that's the thing with that movie is they almost tried to make it too in canon,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
tried to make it like, oh, we have to hit all these beats because this is what is in the known canon.
right,
And like
right.
just come up with a story
Yeah.
that is a good story and
Yeah.
tell that story.
Yeah. And
Don't
people
get
are gonna
all
watch
hung
it.
up on like how that becomes his name, you know?
Yeah. It's unnecessary. Oh, Rachel has popped in.
I was going to say, have you guys ever watched the Mad Max movies?
I have seen the
The Mel
one with
Gibson ones?
Charlize Theron.
Yes, the Mel Gibson one's up through the one with Charlize Theron.
I saw the
just saw
I
the
saw
last
the first one a while ago, but not any of
What
the subsequent
what
ones
they
until this
try
one.
to do is they basically make it where there's not a canon between them. It kind of gets weird all over, but they get the idea that these are the legends of this man named Mad Max that people tell. So each one might be a different legend of this man
Yes.
named Max.
Yeah, and that's how I like to approach Star Wars too.
Yeah.
Again, like I want things to be done intentionally. I I want continuity, but
Yeah.
not at the sake of story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Emily, just don't watch The Road Warrior if you're not prepared for the dog to die.
Oh,
Oh, great.
Oh, it was
there
bad.
needs to be like a list online of
Yeah,
There is.
where the dogs. Oh, okay.
There is. There's
I need
actually
to-
a website called Does the Dog Die, which does pet death and a bunch of other trigger warnings.
I can't.
Yeah, because especially after this year, I can't watch
No,
movies like that
absolutely.
anymore.
Anyway, guys, that's gonna do it for us tonight. We're saving some. Well, no, we really didn't save any news. That's the news that happened. Hopefully, we get some Disney Plus. Hopefully, we get some Disney Plus news tomorrow during the Disney Plus panel at Destination D23. But they've said don't expect anything from Star Wars, so I'm not expecting anything from Star Wars, unless they're playing a Jedi mind trick and just doing a reverse kind of psychology on us. But anyway,
On that note, I have been reading Dune. I just want to
Yeah?
say, also, I'm like into my mojito, so I'm a little. I'm halfway through Dune, and it is crazy how you can tell that Star Wars took so much
oh
from
yeah,
Dune.
oh yeah, right down to
Like-
the spice.
If they took and they twisted it and made it their own thing, I guess. But
Yeah.
You said Jedi mind trick, and that reminded me, like, they basically took I'm probably not going to pronounce this right, Bene Gesserits, who,
Mhm.
by the way, are all women in Dune, which is really cool,
Mhm.
and turned them into the Jedi, and also took like the Mentats and like combined them
Yeah,
and made the Jedi.
yeah. It's
Anyway,
crazy.
sorry, I was reading Dune earlier today,
good.
and it became apparent. Well,
You're
and
good.
I was listening to the audiobook, and the narrator for the Baron sounded like James Earl Jones. Like,
Mhm.
he sounded just like Darth Vader, and he was talking
That's
about the
funny.
Emperor. It's like, is this Star Wars? Is this a
Yeah.
Star Wars?
Yeah, it's really funny how they do that. But
Sorry,
that,
you were
that'll
you
be
were
a-
logging
that'll-
off.
No. That'll be another podcast. We're gonna do a Dune,
Yeah.
Dune heavy podcast.
That would be really cool.
That would be. But anyway, guys, we'll be back with a new Words Between Worlds coming out on Monday. And then happy hour following Saturday, unless people aren't home from Thanksgiving, which in that case we'll move it. But right now, we're actually going to go watch The Amazing Spider-Man because we're doing over on our Marvel podcast, Followers of the Multiverse, in case you haven't subscribed on YouTube or listening on Spotify. We're doing a complete rewatch of all theatrically released Spider-Man movies leading up to No Way Home.
Yes.
We finished the Raimi trilogy, and we are starting The Amazing Spider-Man tonight.
Yeah, and I've been having so much fun with it. I've
it's
been
so much
really
fun. I'm so
enjoying our
excited.
conversations.
I'm so excited. Speaking of that, our Spider-Man 3 convo will be going up on Tuesday.
Yes.
Look out for that.
It was a lot.
Until next time, guys, may the Force be with you always.